A poor village boy studied economics in Soviet Russia, became president at 35, and now controls a $22 million fortune while sitting on top of 11 billion barrels of oil that made his tiny country richer than anyone imagined possible. Picture a small boy growing up in Unity Village in Guyana, one of the poorest countries in South America, a place so unknown that most people can't even point to it on a map. This boy had no money, no connections, no powerful family helping him climb up the ladder of success. All he had was a brain that understood numbers and a burning desire to change not just his own life, but his entire country's future. That boy was Bharrat Jagdeo, born on January 23, 1964. And today he stands as one of the most powerful and richest politicians in the Caribbean, worth $22 million, controlling a nation that went from being dirt poor to potentially becoming the wealthiest country per person in all of South America. But here's what makes this story absolutely crazy. Jagdeo didn't just get rich by stealing money or doing shady deals, though many people accuse him of exactly that. He actually transformed Guyana from a struggling nation with massive debt into an oil superpower producing almost 1 million barrels of oil every single day, creating wealth so fast that economists around the world can barely believe the numbers they're seeing. This is the complete story of how one man went from studying in communist Russia to controlling billions of dollars in oil money, building a personal fortune that raises serious questions, treating his wife so badly that she spoke out publicly about the abuse, hiding his own children for years, and still managing to stay in power as the most influential person in his country, even without being president anymore. Every part of this journey is filled with drama, controversy, huge money, and decisions that changed millions of lives. So stick with me because you won't believe where this story goes. Bharrat Jagdeo grew up in Unity, a tiny village in the Mahaica region of Guyana, where opportunities were almost zero and most kids never dreamed beyond their small world. His family wasn't special or wealthy. They were ordinary working people trying to survive in a country where poverty was normal and success seemed impossible. But young Bharrat understood something crucial early in life. Education was the only way out. While other village kids played cricket and accepted their fate, Jagdeo buried himself in books, studying harder than anyone around him, determined to escape the poverty trap that caught almost everyone in Guyana. He went to Bougainville Multilateral High School, but he knew that staying in Guyana wouldn't give him the knowledge he needed to make real change happen. So in 1984, when he was just 20 years old, Jagdeo made a bold move that changed everything. He left Guyana and traveled all the way to Moscow in Soviet Russia to study economics at Patrice Lumumba People's Friendship University, one of the strangest and most interesting universities in the world at that time. Think about how crazy that decision was. A poor kid from a tiny Caribbean nation going to study in communist Russia during the height of the Cold War, learning about economics in a completely different system than what existed back home. But that Moscow education turned out to be the best investment Jagdeo ever made because he learned things that most economists never understand. He studied how governments manage money, how nations build wealth from nothing, how political power connects to economic control, and most importantly, how ambitious leaders can transform poor countries into rich ones while also enriching themselves along the way. In 1990, Jagdeo completed his master's degree in economics and returned to Guyana with knowledge that almost nobody else in his country possessed. He was 26 years old, armed with a Russian economics degree and ready to climb the political ladder as fast as humanly possible. When Jagdeo came back to Guyana, he didn't waste any time. He started working as an economist in the State Planning Secretariat, the government office that decides how the country spends money and plans for the future. This wasn't a glamorous job, but it put him right in the center of power where he could learn how everything worked and make connections with important politicians. In October 1992, when the PPP Civic Party won the election, Jagdeo became special advisor to the Minister of Finance, meaning he was now directly influencing how Guyana managed its money. But advisory roles weren't enough for his ambition. Just 1 year later, in October 1993, when he was only 29 years old, Jagdeo was appointed Junior Minister of Finance, and then just weeks after that, Party leaders elected him to the PPP's Central Committee, the group of top leaders who control the entire party. His rise was happening so fast it made people's heads spin. By May 1995, when Jagdeo was just 31 years old, he got promoted again to Senior Minister of Finance, giving him control over Guyana's entire economic policy. Think about that for a second. A man barely in his 30s, controlling all the money decisions for an entire country. Party leaders recognized that Jagdeo had something special. A sharp mind for economics combined with the ability to explain complicated financial stuff in ways regular people could understand. And most importantly, the hunger and drive to get things done no matter what obstacles stood in his way. In December 1997, he climbed another rung up the ladder when he became second vice president, positioning himself perfectly for the ultimate prize. That was coming very soon. The moment that changed everything happened on August 9th, 1999. President Janet Jagan announced she had to resign because of health problems, and suddenly Guyana needed a new leader. Jagdeo briefly became prime minister for just 2 days, so that legally he could then become president. And on August 11th, 1999, at just 35 years old, Bharrat Jagdeo was sworn in as president of Guyana, making him one of the youngest heads of state in the entire world. Here he was, a kid from Unity Village who had left for Russia just 15 years earlier, now controlling a country of 800,000 people facing massive problems. Guyana had crushing debt that seemed impossible to pay back. Deep divisions between different ethnic groups who didn't trust each other, terrible infrastructure with bad roads and broken hospitals, and basically zero hope that things would ever get better. Most political experts predicted Jagdeo would fail miserably because the problems looked too big to solve. But Jagdeo surprised everyone. From 1999 to 2011, during his 12 years as president, he pushed through major economic and social reforms that fundamentally changed Guyana. When he finally left the presidency, Guyana had experienced 5 straight years of strong economic growth, beating most other South American countries in how fast the economy was expanding. The country's external debt had been cut almost in half, and the money reserves in the bank had almost tripled compared to where they were in 2006. These weren't just numbers on paper that didn't mean anything. These were real improvements that changed actual people's lives in meaningful ways. Jagdeo invested heavily in social services, which meant better access to education for poor kids who couldn't afford school before. The housing sector saw its biggest expansion in the entire history of Guyana, with thousands of new homes being built for families who had been living in shacks. Road infrastructure got dramatically improved, river transport became more reliable, and air travel expanded to connect Guyana better with the outside world. The presidency brought unprecedented reform in healthcare, with new hospitals and clinics opening across the country. Water and sanitation systems expanded so more people had access to clean drinking water. Jagdeo was building the foundation for a modern nation while also making himself seem like the irreplaceable leader that Guyana couldn't possibly function without. But here's where the story gets absolutely wild and where the massive oil wealth enters the picture. Back in 1999, the same year Jagdeo became president, Guyana signed a deal with ExxonMobil, one of the biggest oil companies in the world. The agreement gave Exxon rights to explore a huge area called the Stabroek Block, covering 26,800 square kilometers of ocean territory off Guyana's coast. At that time, nobody thought there was actually oil there because companies had been searching for decades and found nothing. So Exxon got the rights under terms that were extremely generous to the company, terms that critics now say gave away too much because Jagdeo was so desperate to attract any major company to explore that he didn't negotiate hard enough. For years, nothing happened, and everyone assumed the Stabroek Block was worthless, like everyone had always thought. Then in 2015, everything changed in the most dramatic way possible. ExxonMobil announced they had made what company executives called a fairy tale discovery in the Stabroek Block. They had found oil, not just a little bit of oil, but one of the largest oil discoveries in an entire generation. Nearly 11 billion barrels of oil sitting under the ocean off Guyana's coast. Suddenly, Guyana transformed overnight from a poor agricultural nation that exported sugar and rice into an oil superpower sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of petroleum. The discovery's timing was perfect for Jagdeo, even though he wasn't president anymore by 2015. His presidential term had ended in 2011 because of constitutional term limits that he himself had signed into law, creating a maximum of 2 terms for anyone elected president after 2000. Most politicians would have faded away after leaving the presidency, but Jagdeo understood that real power doesn't require actually holding the title of president. When the PPP party lost the election in 2015, Jagdeo became leader of the opposition in the National Assembly, which meant he led the fight against the government in power while positioning himself to come back stronger. Then in 2020, when the PPP returned to power in a contested election that took months to resolve, Jagdeo was sworn in as vice president under President Irfan Ali. This arrangement is absolutely perfect for Jagdeo because as vice president, he controls most of Guyana's oil policy and economic strategy, wielding enormous power behind the scenes, while President Ali serves as the public face dealing with all the ceremonies and public appearances. Jagdeo gets power without the constitutional restrictions and term limits that come with being president, a brilliant political move that lets him stay in control potentially forever. The wealth explosion that followed the oil discovery is absolutely mind-blowing and explains why Jagdeo remains so powerful today. In 2022, Guyana's economy grew by approximately 62% in just 1 year, making it the fastest-growing economy in the entire world. That growth continued at exceptional rates, 38% in 2023 and 26% in 2024. The country's total economy, measured by GDP, now stands at $24.48 billion and is expected to hit $31.27 billion soon. The really crazy number is GDP per capita, which measures how much wealth exists per person in the country. Just a decade ago in 2014, GDP per capita in Guyana was only $5,400, meaning the average person's share of the economy was barely above poverty level. Today in 2025, that number has exploded to $30,650 per person, and experts predict it will reach $38,680 by 2029. These numbers represent the most dramatic economic transformation any country has experienced in modern history, turning Guyana from one of South America's poorest nations into potentially its wealthiest on a per-person basis within just 1 decade. The oil production numbers are equally staggering. In 2024, Guyana was producing more than 600,000 barrels of oil every single day, which is already an enormous amount for a country with less than 1 million people. But production kept increasing, and current production in 2025 now exceeds 900,000 barrels per day, making Guyana one of the world's highest per capita oil producers. Production is expected to exceed 1 million barrels per day by the end of 2027, when 6 massive floating production, storage, and offloading vessels are all operating in the Stabroek Block. For context, that's more oil per citizen than almost any nation on Earth, including many Middle Eastern oil kingdoms, creating wealth flowing into the country at a pace that's almost impossible to comprehend or manage properly. Vice President Jagdeo announced in 2023 that several major construction projects are now underway using all this new oil money. The government is building 12 new hospitals to replace outdated medical facilities, constructing 7 new hotels to accommodate the business travelers and tourists now flooding into the country, building numerous new schools so kids can get better education, and creating various public facilities that Guyana desperately needed but could never afford before the oil money arrived. These infrastructure investments would have been completely impossible without the billions of dollars now pouring into government accounts from oil sales every single month. Now let's talk about Jagdeo's personal wealth, which has become a huge source of controversy and endless speculation. Multiple sources estimate that Bharrat Jagdeo's net worth is approximately $22 million, making him the 4th richest person in all of Guyana. For someone who spent his entire career working in government jobs that supposedly pay modest public salaries, accumulating $22 million raises obvious questions that demand answers about where exactly that money came from. During his peak earning years, experts estimate his annual salary was around $300,000 from his various government positions combined. But even if you earned $300,000 every year for 20 straight years, that only totals $6 million before taxes and living expenses. So how does someone turn $6 million of salary into $22 million of net worth? The math doesn't add up unless there were other income sources that Jagdeo hasn't been transparent about. Critics allege that Jagdeo enriched himself through questionable deals with Chinese investors who wanted access to Guyana's natural resources, through mining contracts that favored certain businessmen who then gave kickbacks, and through favorable arrangements for wealthy entrepreneurs who benefited enormously from government connections and then shared the profits. Jagdeo has always strongly denied any corruption, claiming his wealth comes from legitimate investments and smart money management over many years. In June 2020, Vice News conducted a 6-week undercover investigation into allegations of bribery, greenwashing, and corruption against Jagdeo. The investigation focused specifically on his relationships with Chinese companies investing in mining and energy projects that seemed to completely contradict all his public statements about protecting the environment and fighting climate change. The documentary showed undercover footage that appeared to show Jagdeo accepting bribes, though the quality and context of the footage was disputed. Jagdeo angrily rejected all the corruption allegations and claimed the Vice News documentary failed to provide real, irrefutable evidence of wrongdoing. Whether you believe these serious allegations or dismiss them as political attacks from his enemies, the undeniable fact remains that Jagdeo accumulated substantial wealth during his decades in politics, wealth that far exceeds what government salaries alone could possibly provide. Beyond the questions about his money, Jagdeo's personal life has been filled with scandal and controversy that seriously damaged his public image, but somehow never destroyed his political power. In 1998, Jagdeo married a woman named Varshni Singh in a Hindu wedding ceremony that his family and friends attended. However, the marriage was never actually legally registered with the government, which became a huge problem later. The couple's relationship fell apart, and they ended their marriage in 2007 after 9 years together. Singh then spoke to reporters and told an absolutely shocking story about her marriage to Jagdeo. She said there were at least 3 separate attempts to legally register the marriage, but on the first 2 occasions, Jagdeo claimed he had lost the registration forms. By the 3rd attempt, Jagdeo had already become president, and he told Singh that as president, he couldn't be subjected to court proceedings, effectively refusing to legally marry her even though they were already living as husband and wife. However, the oil wealth has created serious challenges alongside all the opportunities. Officially, Guyana has the fastest growing economy in the world, but nearly half the population still lives below the poverty line. In 2024, the country experienced a 70-day national teachers' strike over what teachers called starvation wages. While ordinary Guyanese citizens desperately wait for the oil windfall to finally reach their pockets, the boom is actually making life much more expensive. Rent prices have skyrocketed, food costs have inflated dramatically, and to many struggling citizens, the fancy hotels and luxury housing complexes springing up symbolize a future that is not meant for them. From poor village economist to $22 million, political giant controlling a nation floating on 11 billion barrels of oil, Bharrat Jagdeo proved that staying in power behind the scenes while building massive personal wealth works better than being president. So smash that subscribe button to discover more incredible stories of leaders who turned struggling nations into oil empires.